actually 4:15 on the 28th. And this is the regular meeting at 4 o'clock. The 4 o'clock meeting at 4:15. The meeting will come to order. Roll call. We're all here. Mayor's here. Darren's here. Mr. Hoffman's here. Revisions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none. We have the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I have a comment to make on the minutes of the what is it? February 10th. So whether we can do that before we go to the consent agenda or take it off the consent agenda. It's a minor change.
Mike, you want to make a ruling? Can
I also have a minor revision. My recommendation would be to request that it be removed from the consent agenda, vote on the consent agenda, take the revisions.
Great. I make a motion that we remove the minutes from the February 10th from the consent agenda for later consideration.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda without that?
So moved.
Need a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll consider the item for the February 10th. Robert?
Yes, on page 2, the paragraph, the second paragraph under A, review of the 2021 strategic plan goals. The paragraph that ends, President Lee and Mr. Panetta will be doing the hiring.
Yeah.
I believe that more accurately should be reflected as assistant reviewing the applications.
Thank you.
That was my change as well. Good catch.
I think Mike had a
Okay,
comment.
Mike, go ahead.
I just under the attendees, I think my name is listed. I think it should be parentheses only for the executive session. I was not present for the balance of the meeting.
Okay.
I do have one final, really, it's a word change on page 3, the last paragraph, the middle sentence. It starts on solar needs to address the question of economy of instead of with scale.
Okay.
Those are the only 2 changes that I had.
We have a motion to accept it with the revisions.
So moved.
All in favor? Or need a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item number 5, receive the Infomark report. Is Mike here? There he is. Hi, Mike. You're muted, Mike.
Yep. Hey, hello, gentlemen. How you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you.
Good, good. Okay, so just to review some stuff we talked about last month. The Headworks, we received 2 quotes for replacing equalization pump controls. We passed those along to Darren. And then we also received some proposals for the influent screener rehabilitation. We also passed that along to Darren. There was some engineering involved with removing the grinder pumps and replacing them with the compactors. So we're anticipating some engineering work from the board's consultant there. So in the meantime, Darren asked us to look for some temporary solutions, and we do have an idea. We have an idea where we will filter the discharge from the grinder pumps into like a sedimentation sock, and we'll let the water run into the drain system. So we think that we'll catch most of the fine screenings. So this is directly off the screener. It goes into a grinder pump. So instead of that grinder pump discharging to the lye pactor, we'll have them discharge into this filter sock material. And then as that sock fills up, we'll just chop it off and throw it in the dumpster, and reapply it. So we're talked to a manufacturer, and it's the stuff's very inexpensive. They're going to send us some samples. So we're going to try that in the coming weeks. We have the samples on the way.
How frequently do you know, will you have to change the sock?
Probably like every day. So we'd like put a 10 or 15 foot length of the sock on, and then you just, chop the first 18 inches off, or however far the screenings go, and then just reapply it. Wire tie each side and throw it in a dumpster.
Wow.
So it's a simple, no capital investment kind of fix. See if that works. So we had some people in to look at different ideas, like, there's dewatering dumpsters that we could have discharged into, but this is going to be a very low, capital expense. So we'll try this first, and if it doesn't work, then we'll try something else.
So what we have is the Liceptor. Just so the effluent comes in, it goes through a 5mm screen. The 5mm screenings, the stuff that gets on that, it goes to the lye packer to get sent out. We also then send it to the 2mm. It goes from that headwork filter back to the Liceptor to be pumped out. That Liceptor, the screenings inside of it have worn out down to nothing. And so what that's doing is just recycling, and it's just getting stuff ground up until it gets through the 2mm screen and then goes into the process. And so that's what we believe. That's what Mike believes, and correctly so, that's what's adding to the bulking inside the digester. So if we can get that stuff taken out first, that's exactly what it's going to do. Mike, what is we're moving on all of the different parts, the grinders, the other options. What's the time frame of getting the parts even for the 2mm, 5mm screen rebuild?
Yeah, there were lead times 10 to 14 weeks on that, on that proposal. So, and we're finding that lead times are extended, and I'm sure you guys are hearing some of, anything with steel is, prices are shooting up. So, it's best to move as quickly as possible. But yeah, there are going to be lead times. So that's why we're looking to address this temporarily. It might be a little bit messy in the influence screenings room, but we'll figure it out. We'll try to, we'll direct the water towards the drains. So that's our plan initially.
This might be an expensive possible workaround, but given the fact that it's taking over a month to clean the filters, and we can do that obviously this time of season, should we invest in another filter just to have that as an extra? I know that's an expensive solution, but we couldn't tolerate taking something down a month in mid-season here.
It's not a bad idea. It's something to discuss. We discussed, doing something like that, having and having a separate cleaning tank in the future, but we want to see where we go with the, upgrading the screening equipment, rebuilding the screening equipment, putting these compactors in. But I think we're okay as on capacity with three trains online. It might get a little backed up during a rain event, but we were taking close to 400,000 from the county during the winter. We were up to 1.1 million during the winter. So I think the county's going to send us less. So we haven't been here through a summer yet, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think we'll be all right with three trains online.
The word "think" just scares me.
Yeah.
Right?
I understand. I understand.
This could be a major problem if we have to take something down for the better part of a month.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think it's something we probably want to talk with Suez about.
Mm-hmm.
as Mike says, the whole idea of the filter train is N-1, so you could take one out. And once the membranes are wet, they have to remain wet, and otherwise they go bad. So I hear what you're saying, Earl, but I think we need to be sure that, which way we're going to go.
And we can work around where we pull, it's not ideal, but where we pull a module, we're cleaning it, and then we're still running the other two modules in that train. Like I said, it's not ideal because we do a chemical cleaning first and try to get them as clean as possible through chemically and through aeration. But it is, that's always in our back pocket, that we can put the other two membranes online, and we can keep them wet with a we just bought lawn sprinklers, and we keep them wet. So we're sprinkling from two different sides. So it's been effective.
Of course, we still feel that the main problem are the wipes. Is that not correct?
It's a contributing factor. That just, I think that all the grinding going on, prior to getting to the plant and once it gets to the plant is a significant factor. So, if we can remove as much as that stuff at the headworks, I think that will be, that will be a lot better. I mean, the wipes, we were getting wipes back in 2016, 2017 also. I mean, COVID might have accelerated that.
Yeah, there was a large front page article in the, I think, business section of the Washington Post on Sunday all about this nationally, and their main topic was it's really gotten worse because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
More wipes are being used, but I know we can't do much locally, but I think that what we can do maybe is just to really have maybe half-page ads even in the Gazette from time to time, like once a month or something, and postcards periodically for maybe a year, because we have seasonal people too. So
sure,
I think if we could make a concerted effort and put some money into that, it might help. It won't resolve it, but I think it would be money well spent to make a real point of it on an ongoing basis and explain what's going on and why it's so important that they don't flush things like that down the toilet.
But we are preparing a postcard. We're planning on having that out as soon as we do it from the
I
plant.
think that makes, but I think, like once a month in the Gazette, having a nice size ad that people will see and remind them, maybe after a year of that, maybe they'll notice it and start paying attention since they think we're serious. And I think it'd be money well spent.
And in addition to that, I would suggest an email blast, just to amplify that.
Yeah, anything. Yeah.
Two questions. I think the white business will get worse during the summer season.
Mhm.
And the other is, how are you've been taking a fair amount of effluent from the county. How are you going to notify the county that this is happening, that you need this procedure to take place?
One of the things about the county is it's going through its pump first, and mostly your pump. Can you hear me, or am I?
I'm
Oh,
hearing
you're muffled.
You're muffled.
More muffled.
All right.
Switch your microphone.
Go ahead.
How's this?
That's much
Better.
better. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, so the county, all of it goes through their pump station that's over at Wolf Run that they manage.
Right.
That's where they really filter theirs out. So they've got every time, so we've got lift station 4 that's had problems with the pump. That impeller has been worn down, ground down. Mike, you can shake your head if that's correct. And that's what's getting replaced. And that's where those really get hit. All of those wipes get hit at the pump. That's being taken care of by the county at their pump station over in Wolf Run, Wolf Point. It's still the microplastics are coming through, but by the time it comes through that pipe in from the county, most of those have been screened out by the lift stations.
Well, I think a Gazette blast, monthly and postcards from us to our ratepayers. I mean, most of those people read the Gazette. I mean, I would assume,
I agree.
even though they're not in the city. So I think it would be effective over there.
Well, I really like the idea of putting it into the Gazette because it's not just our issue. It's a, countywide, statewide, nationwide problem. So we will do that. We'll make sure we get something into the papers.
We might want to have Nick do an article because he's not on tonight, but
That'd be great too.
I think that would be, an ad is, people overlook ads all the time. And so I think having an article that might be at least on the front end, and then you could publish that on your website.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think it's got to be repetitive for over a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah.
Beat it into their heads that it's important.
Press, the article that you sent around, I read that. I thought that was a great article. It mentioned or touched on actions taken at various state levels as well as the national level. Do you know if AWWA or some of the other national levels or national organizations are trying to get some kind of legislation on this or some kind of addressing it in a comprehensive fashion nationwide? Because, trying to do it at the local level, especially in Lewes with the tourists that come in, it's going to be a continuing education problem to make any real impact on our operations.
Do you know, Darren?
From what I've seen, there's not the national push, but what they do is they've got a lot of, there's a lot of them out there that are kind of standardized that AWWA has helped promote so that all of the different municipalities, the different utilities can put that into their own advertising and put it out there. I don't believe there's any legislation that I know of that we're going and trying to do, but the education part of it is definitely being, AWWA is doing a great job of helping that.
I see Vince is listening in. If he has any information on that, we could let him respond. He may have come across it someplace. He deals more broadly with towns around this area, at least. Maybe.
Yeah, press really.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I really don't. I'm not the wastewater treatment guy.
Okay.
I'm kind of sitting in for Charlie this afternoon.
Okay. Well, if you
Sorry.
would check with Charlie or your firm, see if there's anything that he's aware of, that they're aware of, that'd be helpful.
Will do.
Thanks, Vince.
The other thing is, with the lead time of everything, it kind of puts us in a standstill. So at the same time, we're waiting on parts and we're being proactive on that end. Darren and I met with Suez. Suez met with Mike, and they're doing some things on their ends to change up how the aeration happens to help reduce the amount that the diffusers make it clog because of that wrapping. So there, in every aspect that we can help with the situation, we are. Like I said, Suez is actively involved. Matt Stapleford, who's the salesman, is actively involved. So I think we're on a good path.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, Mike, but I thought that was important to get out there.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, anything will help. So we appreciate it. Filters, we completed train 1, put it back online. Everything's good. Low transmembrane pressure. So sailing right along here, and on to train 2. We chemically cleaned last week and we pulled for deragging this week. So it's a long process, but we're getting through them. So we see the results when we put them back in. I mean, the TMPs go right back to like new. So that was
Mike.
positive.
Hey, Mike, can I back us up just a little bit? So if you look at the executive summary, back in December, I asked the question, when will we go from yellow to green? And the answer was at the end of the first quarter. You thought we'd be green on all fronts. Obviously, there's parts issues and a lot of things going on. What's your perspective? Or is it more parts driven at this point, or are we having other challenges?
I mean, it's just we're plugging away at things, but I mean, these are my honest assessments. I mean, green to me is, there's no issues. So, I mean, yellow, it's just warning or not major issues, but the filters, I mean, the filters, I would say we're going to keep them on yellow until we get through cleaning them all. I mean, that's just where, from my perspective, we seem to have worked through any of the air issues that we were having. Things are better there. We solids handling. I mean, that's related to, we're trying to bring the mixed liquors down for the filters, because it's better for the filters and less clogging. So we have the digester membrane system all back running the way it's supposed to be. Everything's an automatic. So we made progress there. We put a static mixer on the sludge line that goes from the digesters to the drying beds, so it properly mixes the polymer. So we're made progress there. So as far as the solids handling, we're just I left it in yellow, but we did make those repairs. We have this mobile belt filter press from the county, but we're held up a bit by the county didn't have the proper permit to transport sludge biosolids, and we also have a visit from DENREC coming. They're coming next week before we can start up the belt filter press. So we were hoping to have that online by now. We got it very quickly, got it hooked up, but had a couple snags there. Other than that, where we were at, lift stations, I left lift stations in yellow. We have station 4 is offline. One pump in station 4 is offline, which is critical, but we did bring in a diesel bypass pump from Godwin Pumps to act as a backup. So
is that an example where there's a parts issue and getting just to get the other one fixed and up and online? Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're waiting on the cutter plate. So we did have parts for that assembly, but not the cutter plate. So and that's Hills ordered that. They did give us a 7-day lead time, but that was 2 weeks ago, and Richard checked yesterday. They're still waiting on the part. So it's not a common part for that Gorman Rupp pump. So I think that's the issue. We did have rotating assemblies.
Have you had to actually use that standby pump?
Yeah, it comes on. It has floats, and it'll come on when the wet well gets to a certain level automatically.
Okay.
So
Do you know how many times? Is it daily?
It comes on daily. They're putting a couple gallons of diesel in it a day just to top it off. So it's running every day.
Okay.
I mean, that's all based on how the floats are set up. But I mean, it is running. We are using it, and it'll work. It'll work if it has to.
And Mike, I really think it was great that you brought in the backup so that we're not reliant on the one pump. I really commend you for looking at that risk.
So, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to be in the paper either. So
yeah.
So as far as we talked about the belt filter press, no, that's pretty much all I have, except for we did install the rebuilt foam pump in the bioreactor building. So didn't put it online. They got it installed yesterday. They were possibly gonna test it today. If they didn't, it'll be online tomorrow.
What about safety?
It's safety. I mean, we have a list of stuff, not major stuff, that we have to get. We have to get all our programs in place. It's been, we've had our hands full with cleaning the membrane. So it's just to be clear, there's no major safety issues. Anything that would have, that comes up that's a major issue, we'd resolve it immediately. But we have, we have programs that we have to put in place, site-specific, lockout, tag out, hazardous communication, all the programs that are required by OSHA that we're still working on. We have our safety advisor coming down next week to help us out with some of that stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that's on our safety audit list that our advisor did when we first started the plan.
So, Mike, can you talk a little bit about where we are with the 2 mil and 5 mil screens?
Yeah, so we received a quote from Sherwood Logan for parts to rebuild one screen, 63,000, and that's just parts. But so we're looking to rehab each screen and then add a compactor to each screen. So the compactors were 45,000 each, and we passed that along to Darren to get your engineering consultant involved. There's engineering involved with installing the compactor and controls that need to be there's a control panel for the Macer Acers, the grinding pumps, but that can be retrofitted to operate the compactor. But starters need to be replaced. They're different size starters and whatnot. So you're looking at, we're probably looking at 6 months till that can be, till they can be, until that work would be complete. So that's why we're looking for temporary solutions in the meantime.
And I've got Scott Getchell and Chris Derbyshire from GMB are working on the design of that.
Look, the only thing I would ask is look at what these flows are going to be in the summer months. And if there's any belts or suspenders, if there's anything we can do, buy, or think about now that can overcome that. I get that you weren't here, but the math is available.
Yep.
I would just take every look at it, because we'd rather spend some money and have something in our back pocket if we need it, with parts and everything else being issues, than to need it and not be able to get it. So just think about it from a belts and suspenders kind of perspective. I'd appreciate it.
Yep,
We've
absolutely.
Also given them the direction that we have several different pumps that go in our lift stations. And we've told them, get them ordered, get them on the shelf so that we've got redundancy.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
they've been doing good at that.
It's a nice warm day, so I started to worry, just so you know.
Yeah, I got you. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, Mike, thank you very much. Good report.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
All right, item number 6, receive President's report. What I'd like to suggest, I'm made arrangements to go out of the country just at the last minute. An opportunity came up, and I'll be gone from the 19th of May to the, well, I'll get back in Lewes the 1st of June. Is there any interest? So that I would be gone during our normal May meeting, and the annual election. It's actually the annual meeting, swearing in the candidates that were elected and assigning offices to the board members. Is there any interest in having the annual election for the swear-in on May 12th, a week after the election, basically?
Yeah, it's actually 3 days after the election.
Excuse me?
It's only 3 days after the election.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. 3 days after the election. I was thinking of something else. Having the swearing in on the 12th, and then in conducting any other business in addition to the swearing in and appointment of officers. And then if we needed another meeting, we would have a meeting on June 2nd to cover any business that occurred between the 12th and the 2nd. So what is your feelings? I'll be out of the country. I'll try to Zoom. I'm not sure the Zoom will work from where I'm going to be, but that was just a thought that I had.
I can make that work, hopefully.
Both dates are clear for me.
I'm good for both dates.
Tom?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay. All right.
Am I on the wrong? Can I just ask one more time to refresh the dates? So you're talking
The 12th, which would be, I guess, the Wednesday,
12th is a Wednesday, okay, and then June 2nd. Got it.
if needed. That we
Got
won't
it.
advertise that until you determine and the board determines whether another meeting is. But the items that I know you have some items for next month's agenda already, Darren identified.
Yes,
They can be handled on the 12th.
that would be fine.
So, and then the other business.
Can I ask a question to Mike? Mike, I know the you're exempt, the board's exempt from the Board of Elections guidelines, but we cannot have a city council meeting until 7 days after.
That's right. So what I wanted to, so Press and I spoke briefly this afternoon, and I will fall on my sword. I gave you bad information, Press, during that call. I just pulled up the charter here, and it is not that you have to have it within 7 days. It has to be at least after 7 days.
Yes, exactly.
So you need 7 days, but it has to be the same month. So the problem that we run into is the fact that with you being away, Press, but I think the Monday or Tuesday, the 17th or 18th, unless you wanted to do it, well, 17th or 18th is probably the best. I apologize for that. That is on me.
The city council meeting is the 17th. So you wouldn't want to do it, I don't think, the same night.
Okay. How is the 18th for everyone? Oh, wait, I won't be, I'll be leaving the 18th, actually, to go down to get my flights out early the next morning.
Well, couldn't you Zoom from whatever hotel you're going to be in on the 18th?
Yeah, I could. Well,
Or we could do it during the daytime on the 18th.
all right, yeah. How would that go? Be all right?
I've got to check the schedule, but I think I'm out of town, but I think I could probably, figure out how to link in.
Your meeting's at 6:30, Mayor?
Yeah, actually, our executive session starts at 5. So, and we'll probably have things earlier because of swearing in of people, and because we're going to be, obviously, Bonnie will be leaving us, and we'll probably have some opening remarks before that. So I would say if you're going to do it on that afternoon, you're going to do it fairly early in the afternoon.
Well, I can do it on the 18th, come to think of it, because I won't be leaving here to go down to Baltimore until probably noon at least. So if we did it in the morning, have it 9 o'clock.
We can do that.
When are you leaving town? Are you leaving town on the 19th?
I'm leaving town on the 18th to go down because I've got like a 6 o'clock flight, 6:45 or something, the next morning. So, or I can just, we can just keep it where it is and I'll try to get in by Zoom from.
Now, I think it's probably best if you do it from in the States. I mean, God knows what the connections will be like where you are.
But if you did it from Baltimore, that's no problem.
Well, I don't know that either, but how about the morning of the 18th?
That's fine for me.
9 o'clock? All right, let's do that.
So what time?
9 on the 18th.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Sorry, this opportunity came up at the very last minute and it gave us a good chance to get away that we didn't think we'd be able to.
So
I'm in North Carolina, but I can dial in.
Just do
So is
the,
it just the swearing in, or is it going to be a meeting also?
It would be a meeting also, Tom.
Okay.
All right, that's all I had. Receive the general manager's report.
We have the general manager's report. In that we have
Wait a minute. There's a good chance Earl's gonna be sworn in. Pretty good chance. he should be there. Let's just keep it where it is, where we had it. I'll do everything I can to get through on the night of the meeting, and we'll see what happens.
What day are we targeting now? Just make sure I'm square.
Now, the 18th, you can be in North Carolina, you said.
We'll be in North Carolina, yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's just plan on doing it, was it on the 28th of May?
26th.
26th, but it has to be done in May, and then okay. So I'll try to tie in. If not, Tom, you'll have to take over. Tom.
Yeah, that's easy, wasn't it? I mean, we could still do the meeting even if you can't get through.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So,
I don't have to be there because I'm at least.
so just for a normal meeting on the 26th, correct?
I guess that's the date, yeah.
Okay, good.
But actually, I hate to throw, but Press, you really need to be there if there's gonna be a reorganization meeting. Can we put the reorganization off to the next month? Mike?
According to the charter, it happens at the same time.
Right, it says the Board of Directors at its annual meeting held in the same month as the election, but not less than, tell an attorney, not less than 7 days after the election shall swear in newly elected directors and organized by the election from among the directors, the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and assistant treasurer. So that all has to happen at the same meeting.
You do it on a weekend? I'm just throwing it out there.
I guess there's nothing that prevents us from doing it.
If you were to do that, and I think it would be fine to do it on a Saturday, but just do the organization, just do the swearing in.
I was going to say that. We want to do that. Yes, we don't conduct any other business. Mike, do you see any problem with that?
No, as long as it's not less than 7 days.
So we could do it on the 16th. Does that work for everyone?
That's not 7 days.
It's the 8th,
7 days.
15th. Right?
The 15th would be 7 days.
15.
Right, so the 16th would be, I mean,
8
I
days.
guess we could- the election is in the evening. How do they count the days, Mike?
It says not less than 7 days. So
Or the
I think you're
7th.
fine on Saturday. You're fine on the 15th. You're certainly fine on the 16th.
What about the 17th, Monday morning, 9 o'clock,
That's where I was gonna go, do it in the morning on the 17th.
swearing in, election of officers, and dismiss?
That might be better. That might be better.
I'm
So
okay with that.
I think that'd be best. Let's do it 9 o'clock on the 17th then.
Does that work for Earl?
Yeah, I'll be remote, but yes, it absolutely works for me.
Oh, no, it still doesn't work for you then.
Aren't we all remote?
Well, yeah, that's right. Oh, right. So, okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Item number 7, General Manager's Report.
All right, I got a couple items and then we'll talk about the finances very quickly. Number 1, Pilot Town Road. Today we have the construction has completed. We have a new line that goes all the way down right to the driveway of the Lewes Dairy. They have George and Lynch is now out there. They've been spending the day milling, and they mill simply the repair that we initiated and made. So they're milling it, and tomorrow and the next day they will be doing the overlay, and it should be a nice smooth road, and drivability will have been improved. Number 2, we've got the Coleman and Fourth project number 24. Just so people know, as you drive by, Tom Panetta had a great question. What the heck is the big trough that they're building? Ultimately what they're building is a pervious paver sidewalk with a pervious asphalt. You'll have about a 2-inch reveal on the uphill side. It's connected to the sidewalk that is existing, and it's going to slope down to those pavers. And what you see now is the undergirding, all of the stone, and there will be some fiber put down, and then the pavers, and it'll be very nice. The water will sheet over onto the pavers, in through the pervious pavers, and ultimately it's going to be a very nice project once it's complete. We're still anticipating it's probably 3 to 4 weeks out still before it's completed.
You said fiber, you mean geotextile? Is that what you're talking
Yes, yes. So cloth, geotextile fiber that you put down. So ultimately, it's going to be a very good project. But the patience that it is stretched, we apologize profusely to the people that are there, but we know that ultimately they're going to have a great project that they can be proud of, and we'll be happy it's done. We're going to be working on doing some hydrant flushing because of schools being in and out. We don't want to take and have them shut down. We're actually looking at doing the hydrant flushing. We're going to experiment at doing that at night, through the night. We will minimize the amount of lights that we use. We'll still be safe, but we'll be going through doing the hydrant flushing, and we believe we can get it done through a night run and have less disruption to the customers and the citizens. And we're hoping that that will be a better solution that will prove out to be very positive. We'll see how that works. We hope we don't have any complaints, and we'll be nice and quiet as we do it. The other thing that we have is in your packet, you now have the end of year financials. And there's a couple of items that I would invite you that are of interest, that are kind of anomalies. Number one, as we look at the end of year on the revenues, it is very interesting to me that line 7, which gives you the total of revenues.
You're for the year now, Darren?
Yes, year to date. We've got the March, or the,
Right.
The March, the last month. It's a single month. I don't believe there's a whole lot that's remarkable in that, but the year to date, I get very excited about. This is the one that really matters. So line 7, as we look, one of the first things I look at is the total revenues in electric. We were actually down by about 2.3%. Nothing too egregious in all of that. Seemed just right. When it comes to the percent of revenues in water, that's up by 20%. When we look at the revenues in sewer, that's up by 21%. And so I believe it's an absolute show of COVID, that you have residential people that have stayed home instead of having a real drop off in the seasonality of our customers. I believe we did not have that nearly as significantly as we usually do. And I believe that makes up for that difference. That increase in revenue is because of actual usage and consumption.
Darren, let me just ask you for clarification though. On the sewer revenue other, that's a significant increase. That's an anomaly. Would you elaborate on that?
Yes, that's a very large one. There's two numbers that kind of go in there. One was $335,000 that we received in November from White Marsh. So that was an other revenue. I won't go into any more detail on that. I think we know exactly what that is. And so that was a White Marsh. The other thing that's happened on the other revenues, both in water and sewer, we recently got another check for about $95,000 from a developer that's going to be developing the Lewes dairy property. They do not have any approvals. Do not have anything other than they wrote the check, so that when Teal gets to that point, the appropriate manholes, the appropriate connections to the water will be put in place, stubbed out into that the Lewes dairy. But that's an additional roughly $100,000 that has gone in there that would not have normally been. So there's a couple of those that have been kind of big hits that really set that off and make it an anomaly. Thank you. Great question. So I look at line 7, the total. We have an increase of revenues at 5%, 5.33. The other definitely is the item in there. I think what we had for all of the estimates for our revenues were pretty good, and that COVID is really the determinant in making the differentials from our budget. Always go down and look at line number 9, our purchase power. That's actually up by 1.86%. And so that's, I think that's a sign of just how close we are between our revenues, our purchase power, and the fact that we have had the lowest electric rates in Delaware for about the last 2 years. Now I got to be careful saying that, because for the last 2 months, the electric co-op has beat us by about 6 cents. So it's still awful darn close. Recognize that they don't pay a payment in lieu of franchise, which is fine, but we're still one of the lowest in the state. As I go through the expenditures, a couple of them that really stand out to me. The other supplies and expenses, specifically on sewer, that's line 14. That's one of those that the budget was 27,000. The other last year was 26. This one's at 96. That was, we had to pay, because of the spill, a $65,000 bill to DENREC because of that. So on that upper level, the other revenues that came in from that, we paid out to the DENREC the other 65. So that wasn't a complete wash. The professional and contractual services, you'll see that that one is significantly up. Again, you look at the sewer. This is where we have Inframark, which was an increase, our budgeting. It came in prior to the signing of that contract. And so the budget was at the 440,000. That contract alone, without anything additional, is now at about 5. So that's next year, we'll have that in the budget, and it should be much closer. There was also a little bit of overlap there. And so again, next year we'll be tighter on that one. One of the positives I would look in is the admin costs. And simply by being some of the frugality, et cetera, is that we're 5% under on the admin costs. And that's a big one. Some of those, if you have a 5-10% swing, it's not that big a deal. On the admin, that's a big enough number that when there's a swing there, and for the lower, that's a good sign. We go down to the total expenses. The total expenses from the budget, we're actually up by about 200,000 in our expenses. But again, that was a 2% difference. So in total, we had the operating income for us budgeted was 700,000. It was 1.2 million. So that was a good differential between, and most of that comes from the revenues of people not being gone during COVID. There's also one of the other revenues is we have the county now that we started in August, that we have approximately $190,000 in revenues from the county at the wastewater treatment plant. And that's a very, very, very good and positive thing for us, is that relationship with them. And I hope that we all recognize the value of that relationship.
Gary, what would you say the costs are on that $190,000? How much of it drops to the bottom?
Probably about 80% of it.
Okay, thank you.
So it's pretty, there's definitely an increased cost in our solids handling, an increased cost in chemical because of that addition, but there's also some reduction in the use of, it's another chemical called, it's a carbon additive for phosphate. They actually help that. Pumping's average, it's much, we're doing better than the expenses of adding the additional county flow.
Yeah.
So thank you. Great question. Now, when we come to the non-operating revenues, this is one of those that I hope everybody out there understands. You kind of have to look at this with a little bit of a jaded eye. We've been continuing to do our interest and dividend income. We're also, when we look at our impact fees, I tell you, we sandbag, but we've come in. Point Farm has done everything that can to get that place built out this year and have gone great guns. Same with Schofield. Schofield, we've had some significant increases there as they've been building just as fast as they can. And so those impact fees have been realized. The biggest line that gets us is line 27. That's our change in market value. And line 27 from last year at the, as of the April date last year was a negative 998,000, while this year it was a positive 1.1 million, 1.6 million. And that is, you recognize that that's part of our reserve fund. And so with that, it's not real money until we've got it in the ground. And so I invite you to be careful of that. So I actually take that number, that 1.6 out from the bottom line, our change in net assets, we're right at 2 million. So with that 2 million, we're still paying almost 1 million in debt because of our $12 million debt. Those other, the debts that we have throughout from the system. So we have capital expenses that we have principal payments and interest payments that we're making that has to come from that. And so I see that right about a $1 million that we have to the good. And we have our aggressive capital projects plan. We've spent that much on Pilot Town Road and Coleman. And so we're holding very, very even at where we're at, but we're in the black. I feel confident that we're doing the right things and going in the right directions. Any other questions?
Darren, you didn't pay any interest on the SRF money for the purchase of the Jones Farm in March, did you?
That is correct. We did not.
So that'll be reflected starting in next year's budget.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I went through this with Darren earlier today, and it's really easy and fun to be sitting on this side and poke fun. And I realized that now that we're, coming out of COVID, we had COVID, that was an anomaly. Now we're having, coming out of COVID, that's going to be an anomaly. I really think it would be helpful for Tom and I to sit down with Darren and just kind of track through some of these numbers. It'll be less fun in these meetings because we'll be more accountable for the actual numbers. But I think it'd be good for us to sit down and do that. I don't know if that needs to be a vote at some point or how we do that, but I would think as treasurer and assistant treasurer, that would be a responsibility that we should kind of have on an ongoing basis.
I don't think we need a vote on that, Earl. I think that's just good business.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
But then we can't poke fun at Darren. It's going to be on us. So that's, I have to live with that.
Did you just volunteer me for something, Earl?
Yeah, you were sleeping, Tom.
No, I wasn't, unfortunately. No, I think that's an excellent idea, Earl.
Any other questions for Darren? Thank you, Darren. Good report.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're into presentations. We have none. New business. Item 8, open forum general discussion of 1145 Savannah Road, application for sewer services discussion. Mr. Gordon.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. I'm also going to invite David and Christine Jones, who own that property. I'm going to turn on their volume so they can speak. I'm going to share my screen here. If you'll give me just a second. This is a overview. This is of the property in question. Let me see if I can get should go to the next slide. Oh, darn it. It's not going to act like a PowerPoint. Let me go one more time here.
And just my edification, is this Dave Jones of Atlantic Refrigeration?
No, Auto
Okay, because I would have to accuse
Collision
myself.
Center.
I was in his weddings. Okay.
Okay. No.
Right there. All right. hopefully you can see my screen. This
Yep.
is in the red triangle, this is the property in question. This is what the Joneses are looking at, putting their micro.
We can't see it.
I'm sorry, say that again?
We can see it now. We couldn't earlier.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so what we've got, we actually have, the manhole is here in yellow. This is where they need to get to provide sewer service. This is the closest sewer main for them. There is one right about here where my pointer is, and it's very, very shallow. It's also everything along this road on this south side of the road. There is a bank of communication, fiber lines, and some electric and some other water that makes this almost impossible to get through. The best, closest option is to get their sewer to this manhole right here by Hulling Cove. They are going to, we've talked to the Joneses. They're going to have to put in there, they can put in their own e-pump, which is a small grinder pump. An e-pump is a brand name. They can use any kind of pump that they would want to, but they have to come across Savannah Road, which is a Del Dot road, and then come parallel with the road down to and drop it into this manhole. The question that they have come to us with is, the only other person that can participate in this would be the auto gallery. The auto gallery has their holding tanks, septic on this side, roughly where my pointer is. They would be coming in and they would be taking advantage, getting a benefit if they didn't participate in this line from the manhole to the side here. What the Joneses, I believe, are requesting is that they would like to be able to share this cost, split it evenly between them and the auto gallery. The issue is that the auto gallery is not currently talking about or considering putting in their sewer. They are not in need. What I would offer, and we've already had a discussion both with the mayor and I believe press has been a part of this, is that we would take the actual cost of this line when it's installed, and we would pay half of it, and then we would collect that half when the auto gallery came to be our customer. I believe that's the request. Christine and Dave, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, that sounds good. Yep.
I sent an email out earlier. I'm not sure if everybody got it, but there was 3 questions that I had.
Did you receive my response?
I did not.
Huh. Mayor, did you get the response?
I did.
So did I.
If you want, I can
Yeah.
share that. There were 3 questions. Number 1 was in the city code. It says that you cannot have a processing plant that processes chickens, beef, guts, vegetables, or fruit. And Christine and Dave asked whether or not this would count as one of those processing plants. And I answered no, that is not, we would not consider it to be that.
Just Darren, if I can step in, this is Mike Hoffman. I think that questions in terms of zoning and whatnot should go through the city. If there are questions on the utility side, happy to discuss those here. But I would leave questions on zoning and city code application to the city outside of this meeting.
Thanks, Mike.
Christine, I would simply tell you I've answered your email, and I think they're all to your good.
Okay, sounds good.
It does.
Thank you.
So the one thing is that on this, you would have, I believe you'd said you'd contacted Harry Caswell and that he had a different design. Can you tell me what that was?
He may actually be on the call. He was going to try to be on the 4 o'clock call just to answer any questions. So I'm not sure if you're able to see his name or not,
He's
but
not.
we don't have, he's not.
No.
We don't have an actual drawing from him concrete, but he did come back out and revisit the property.
So I think it's very similar to what you're showing here. One of the original all the
Dave, I don't know
house
if,
and
I
go
don't know if
straight
this is true for
across
anybody else, but we couldn't hear you for the last 30 seconds.
into the auto gallery. Proposal that we had was for the line to come where the house is, straight across the road, almost in the middle of the auto gallery parking lot, and then go down. But I think Harry Caswell's proposing where you have the green line.
Okay,
So I think we're good with that.
all right, that sounds good.
So Darren, is this a precedent that we've had in the past, I assume?
Actually, we've already kind of set precedent with such as Savannah Place, such as Highland Acres, where we are able to share that and pass that cost on to the next. This one, so I don't think this is out of the norm, or we're not making any stretches here to be able to do this. And it's my recommendation. that we do.
Galleries out of the city limits. Is that a fair assumption?
Mayor, do you know that?
I beg your pardon? No, Auto Gallery is currently not in the city limits, but they're the only parcel that isn't in the city limits there, and they would not get sewer service without. And what they have is a holding tank, and any expansion they want to do there, future use they want to do there would require connection to a sewer. And like the Jones, the county would undoubtedly refer them to the city for connection.
Understood.
The other thing I would add is that this is based on actual cost. We, GMB brought up a proposed estimate, which was right around, what, 54,000, Christine and Dave? That's definitely a big bite, but this would definitely be based on actual cost, and we would take the point from right here down, split that cost, and we would pay for that half until the date and time when the auto gallery came on, and we would charge it to them.
Just one question, just to make sure I understand. So are you splitting it 50-50 in total of what it is now? Or does the next person who the auto gallery, do they pay the 50% cost of what it would have cost to bring it down?
I think it, so that in your, what I would ask for is that you as a board simply give me direction that I will, that we will make this happen, and that we can add a 2% adder each year to that cost, so that, that there's a carrying cost to it. I think that would be appropriate.
I think that makes sense.
That follows a prior precedent, I believe, in situations like this.
Darren, now, of course, I assume that the effluent from a brewery is going to be a higher BOD than a single family home or any kind of home, any personal wastewater. So are we going to put a sampling port there, or make arrangements to have a sampling equipment installed at the effluent?
So what I've done in the past is they actually have a sampler that you can put inside the manhole that takes, and as the line is used, that you sample it. We have another, we also have the Big Oyster. We have some restaurants, and I think it's something that we need to look at. I will probably be bringing something to you as a board that talks about a adder to the BOD loads of different industries and commercial businesses that come online. And so I will be coming to you in the future with an issue as to what the BOD loads and how that should be paid for.
Yeah, I think that'd be appropriate, because it obviously costs more to treat stronger waste of BOD load higher than normal. So I think it would be fair to us and fair to them at the same time.
You bet. And that's what you do, is it's actually a transient tester. You can put it in the manhole. It'll collect from the specific, business and or unit, and then you can take and get that tested. You find out what the BOD is, and you can go from there.
Aaron, would you have your recommendation in sufficient time to be considered if or when we review our rates?
Probably not. It takes a little bit. I can get a framework of what it looks like. So there's a lot of information out there. Again, AWWA, WEF, the Water Environment Federation. There are some standards that say, all right, a mortuary, a hospital, a restaurant, they have some standards that you could go by, but to be really fair, to do the testing, that's the most fair. Again, but no, probably won't be in time for what we have for our rate study coming back.
Any other questions or thoughts on this? Darren, what are you looking for from us today?
Again, I would just ask that you get a vote that, yes, I will pursue taking and sharing the cost of this line of what the auto gallery would be doing, and that the BPW will carry that until the time that the auto gallery comes on. And we share that with the microbrewery.
Do I have a motion to that?
I'll make the motion that Darren has the ability to go and work it out with the auto gallery and see whether he can get a sharing agreement.
Are you actually doing that? Are you actively looking for that now, Darren?
No, I have not approached them.
I didn't think so.
So I would just say that we, as the BPW, can go ahead and act in behalf of the auto gallery. We'll be fine.
I guess
Mike, Mike, do you have any input on how we should do this?
Yes. So I guess the first question is the request, Darren, for you to put together a framework and then you're going to come back to the board with the framework? Or is the request to split the costs?
Split the cost, and the BPW will recover it later.
With an interest to be decided later, I assume, or?
Do you want to say interest equal to the loans we get from the SRF state loans? That's a pretty generous.
No, because you're going to include the cost of additional labor associated with the prevailing wage.
Why
I would charge them higher than 2%. Cost of funds is going up. I think it makes sense to have it either indexed or have something higher than 2%.
Okay, or have it equal to our reserve fund returns.
That could be negative, depending upon
Could be very dangerous. Yeah.
Let me add this. I think Darren, you're looking to get, and the reason I asked the question is there is an existing BPW policy, as was referenced during the call or during the meeting here today. That policy does include a latecomer fee, is what we defined it as. So if the connection's not made within 3 years, you're assessed a latecomer fee, and it defines what that fee is. Don't remember off the top of my head, but I can go and find that. The way that policy worked is that as we were allowing this option to be available to develop properties, the map of EDUs would be revised. So what I would recommend is that we come back with a resolution that documents what you're doing here, and if there are questions on that latecomer fee. It sounds, however, that Darren's trying to get some direction here today. And so what we can do is, if this is something the board is interested in, then I think that you can authorize staff to proceed so that the next month we have the resolution, the policy updated that reflects this arrangement. So that, Darren, gives you at least direction, but then it also gives us direction to paper it consistent with the policy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect. And it also gives Christine and Dave the idea that this is going forward. This is how we're going to do it. And they can move forward appropriately.
So what I would recommend then, if that's the will of the board, is it would be a motion to proceed with the cost sharing approach. That is, the utility extension would occur and it would be split consistent with the BPW utility extension policy, with the understanding that we will document and memorialize that policy at the next board meeting. That's the motion.
There you go.
So could I say so moved?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I, and just simply clarifying, it's only the line, we're only splitting the line that goes from the, not across the road, but down parallel. Savannah Road.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Christine and Dave, does that answer your questions?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
We look forward to you being open.
Yep.
Me too. Thank you.
Good luck.
Would you be able to resend that email to me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Don't you
All
need
right.
to- Don't you need to vote on it? Did you vote on it?
I did.
Did you? Okay. I thought you didn't.
I probably did.
Okay.
Item 9, open forum general discussion of the proposed 2021-2022 strategic planning objectives. It'll be Robert and Darren and myself. As you know, we did the strategic plan a few years ago. I think we're in our 3rd year of implementing it. In your packet, you have what was prepared last year for the items that from the strategic plan that we identified, and that's the page with the red lettering in there. And then I worked with Robert, who headed up the strategic planning originally, and put together the objectives or potential objectives for discussion tonight. These pretty much follow the results of the workshop that we did back in February. So that's where they came from, both the original strategic plan and the workshop in February. So Darren, do you want to go through the plan for the 2021 and where we stand with that before we jump into the discussion of the items that we're planning for the coming year?
So number 1, the electric study with timeline. The study has been completed. We had Sergeant Lundy that have come in and done that. We have the report. It does a lot of information, the big ticket assets, the transmission lines. We've got a couple of transformers that were set out, and we have now in our 10-year budget that they will be replaced. So we'll have some redundancy there. That was based on the assumption that we'd have 50% inclusion of electric vehicles at that time. Other than that, they say it's very robust. And we've also taken that and started moving forward with the battery energy storage system. And we are currently getting ready for that to go out to bid for our RFPs out to other groups. If you look on the other page, the electric infrastructure, we're looking at expanding that not just to the battery storage, but also the solar and the smart meter considerations. And we've already had some work done on both of those stands, working through DMEC and AMP along with for the AMI. When it comes to the billing system, number 2, billing system with timeline.
Hey, Darren, just to go back, did they get back to us on the information we requested for the AMI?
Not really. So they've got the AMP, the people that are the salesmen there. We gave them information. They've been crunching it a little bit. Most of it has come back to where it doesn't make the financial sense, however, and so Scott's been working with us there. Austin has done a fantastic job of keeping that going. Austin, is that kind of where we're at?
Yeah, we had another meeting with the same gentleman that started the presentation but did not finish the presentation. We're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place because the way that they want to calculate ROI is different than the way we want to calculate ROI. For us, we kind of look at it from an individual customer standpoint because our customers are our ratepayers. They want to look at it from the utility standpoint. The problem is that we've created a lot of efficiencies when it came to the billing system. A lot of money that they incorporate into savings kind of runs with disconnects. We're very fortunate that we don't run into those situations very often. We have Suzanne. She's great. She calls individual customers, and we're still in kind of like that discovery phase. they're supposed to get back to us once they took a little bit more time to kind of do a deeper dive into our utility and how we operate and how efficient we are, to see if there is an actual cost basis that can be justified beyond, like when Tom points out, being able to actually view your system from a SCADA standpoint, because that's one of the things we don't have, like we do on the water side.
We also asked them for some surveys from their end user customers to see how they like the service as well, and obviously the trip up to Milford also. So look, I'm glad to see it's moving forward. It'll be nice to see the final math on it.
Yep.
And of course, it won't be a total bottom line decision. I mean, we have to take our environmental initiatives as a board into consideration. I mean, we don't want to waste money. On the other hand, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing going forward and in line with our environmental objectives. So it'd be interesting to see. We have to plow all that together, I think, before we make a final decision on this.
Agreed.
Agreed. Part 2, building system and timeline, administrative operations. We have implemented our new, during the COVID, we have gone to the NISC, very, very strong. We've also done a RKL study that looked at our staffing and looking at the roles, the 2B, identified internal roles that need to be expanded or addition, staff hired. We have hired a finance officer, Kimberly. She's fantastic. We have also hired a new administrative assistant who will be reporting here in a week. And we've had a couple other new hires, just simply replacing people both out in the field and a new lineman. But with all of those, we feel like we've made that hurdle. The iron and lead replacement with timelines, Pilot Town Road, we are in the midst of that, getting that job completed. We added in that, we were just going to do the regular lines. We weren't going to do the main. We've added that main replacement. And so we've kind of slowed and pushed that out. We're still working on having the cedar go, but we're going to need to finish up this fall. We're going to finish up Pilot Town Road, and then we're going to continue on. One of the other things that we've done with the 24, the project we've done with the city, all of those service lines have been replaced and all of those lines into the homes have been observed. I don't think we've found but maybe one line that was lead line. So there's, while we're concerned about lead, we've got a very good report so far that we haven't had issues there.
Good.
So that's a very positive. We have an aggressive, we've looked very strongly at what is our 10-year capital projects, what is our 5-year capital projects, and then our 1. And so we're continuing to move forward on all 3 of those items. Policies for customer data security, update website to be interactive tools. Our new administrative assistant, we've made sure that that individual has some strength that can help not just create a new website, but to keep it very, very live and keep it up to date on a daily basis, and so that it's interactive and that it's going to be robust more than we have already. Again, NISC, that was sort of, we were waiting. You have to have the dominoes stack all the right way. We needed to have NISC in place so that we could tie to it versus the old Blue Ocean system, which would not have been a step up or an improvement for our website. And so each of these steps is adding the next step so that we can continue to build what we want to build. Policy for competitive wages and workforce development. Again, that RKL study in comparison with AWD, WEF, et cetera, and also local utilities. They did a good job. All of the wages have been looked at and taken care of, other than the general managers. The next page, page 20 to 21, 21 to 22.
Okay.
You want Robert to go over those?
Robert, yeah, well, you did most of the work on this, so do you mind?
Well, this was circulated with the packet. These are proposed items for emphasis, and some is sort of bleeding in from last fiscal year to kind of hopefully get cleaned up and implemented in this next fiscal year. As I said, they were circulated. Hopefully, it's clear as the way I explained it. But we can take them one by one and discuss them and see if there are changes that anyone would like to consider on it. Number one, the electric infrastructure. It really kind of follows on the Sergeant and Lundy study to take those recommendations and see if they are cost benefit analysis performed on them, and whether or not they're something that are high priority, low priority, or medium priority. So I was trying to see if we could be in a position to consider those during this upcoming fiscal year, and know if we're going to implement them currently or put them out on the to be revisited schedule for future consideration. Any questions or discussion on that point?
Darren, where do you stand with that? Is that, this is what we talked about? Is this still the way you're looking at it?
Yeah, I think so. We've got Sergeant Lundy really concentrating on the battery. We still have Scott Lynch.
No, I'm talking about the water and sewer. I mean, I guess.
So what we have there is we've just finished getting approved by WEAC to get the a grant from them, a matching grant for the study that GMB is going to do. And so if you tell them to go forward, that's not covered by the grant.
Right.
So as soon as I close on that grant, which I finished going through that paperwork today, it's now with the state. We'll then get that, and then GMB will jump in the middle of that and be able to get that done. So I'm still, the go date on that is probably 2 weeks out.
Yeah. Robert?
Item 2, the water sewer systems. We discussed at the board with Darren's input a couple of months ago about doing some testing of the suitability of the mains that we have, some destructive testing, and based upon that, possibly revise the construction plan to, instead of replacing, relining where possible with hopefully some significant capital savings to that. I don't think we started that yet, so I thought that might be something that we could put in the strategic plan to focus on that and get that underway and analyze the results and flow that into our capital budget and revise the capital budget based upon those test results. That was really the thought in the first paragraph. Obviously, as Darren mentioned earlier, we're at the time where we're ceasing work on Piletown Road pending the final road repairs in the fall when DelDOT allows us to get back onto that project. So I just put that there as an item that we certainly expect will be completed, but just to put it on there as an item that we want to make sure gets done in the fall. The next paragraph about the analyzing individual pumping stations to identify potential infiltration and inflow points. I believe it was kind of like a two-stage process. We want to make sure we had telemetry, my term, that may not be the right term, from all the pumping stations. I believe that's been accomplished, and now we need to analyze the data that's coming from those individual pumping stations to allow us to focus on areas where we might have infiltration and inflow problems that we can address and minimize the amount of influent or the inflows coming into the wastewater treatment plant. So it's really analyzing data that is currently being developed, if my understanding is correct.
Is all the data collected, Darren, from the pumping stations we have?
So it's being collected. So that's one of those, so in the report that we're getting from Infomark, if you look at the very back, it's got a lot of the graphs. So they've got graphs on every one of those lift stations that have the monitoring on it. Again, they're looking at, I've asked them, can you tell us where you see the problems, where we can start? The next step is to camera. So we've got a kind of an idea of where the issues are. And then we're going to have our guys ready that when we have rain events coming, et cetera, that we send them to the certain locations to camera to see what we have. So there's that the next step is that cameraing. The other thing we're going to do is, and this is on the water side, is I've also got a crew that's going to be coming that are professionals in leak detection. And so they're going to be able to, any kind of leaking, and actually they can actually hear, they use ultrasonic detection. They can actually hear leaks going into sewers if they're loud enough. And so we've got some options there as well. So the next step, so we've gotten a pretty good hold. The more time that we have gives us better information. So we're going to start working on that I&I to get that reduced.
So this is a specialist contractor? Is that what we're talking?
Yes, yes.
And where are we going to do that? Just areas we suspect, or we're trying to do the whole system, or?
Okay, we've done the whole system. We've actually got a quote for 4 cents a foot, which is right around $11,000 for all of the mains from a 6-inch main up.
Yeah.
So we're going to have all of our mains looked at, and it doesn't take long if you've got a small leak in there that you could lose, 50,000 gallons in it. You do the math on that, and we can save a lot of money pretty quick with just a few leaks that they may be able to find and locate.
Darren, didn't we have a similar type survey done in the past where they rode around at night and listened for these leaks? Is this using more sensitive or newer technology than what was done in the past?
It is newer. I've tried, so we've actually have some of that equipment. The problem is you've got to use it every single day, and it takes you a year using it every single day before you become proficient enough. It's a skill set that's way beyond us. And so having an outside contractor do it, I think we're going to find I think we'll have some great success.
Moving on to sea level rise. Sea level rise was an issue in our strategic plan.
Well, we had the wipes, but we've already talked about that, I guess. So.
Oh, yes. I think that's just going to be an ongoing educational effort. And I think, using a combination of bill stuffers and maybe email blasts, as well as the paid advertising, certainly will keep it before the public as an issue. I'm not going to share with you my thoughts as to how effective that's going to be, but I think it's good to make people aware of it, and hopefully we'll, in conjunction with some upgrades at the plant, we'll be able to minimize the negative effects that they have on our system. But certainly a public information program is something that I think we also need to consider. Sea level rise, in our strategic plan, sea level rise was a concern. One of the first steps seems to me to be the vulnerability study. I don't know much about what we do on that, but I think identifying where we are vulnerable to BPW assets would give us a baseline to start to see how we can then mitigate any danger to our assets associated with sea level rise.
Tom, I'm just going to ask you, can you fill any specifics in that we could use going forward for this?
Sure. Several things. The sea level rise ordinance for critical infrastructure is before the city, and there'll be a public hearing sometime in May. Let me look it up.
May 3rd.
May 3rd. Thank you, Ted. But specifically with related to BPW, we have the cross sections designed for the wastewater treatment plant. So the the next step is going to be to look at where the most vulnerable points are in the facility relative to both the main process building and the ancillary buildings like the drying beds, and determine what needs to be done in the near term, midterm, and long term to ensure that we are staying in front of sea level rise. The preliminary review right now is from the process building perspective. We don't have any immediate issue. Now, as sea level rise increases, there will be things that probably need to be addressed, but we do have to make sure that the rest of the facility is secured prior to an event.
So we should identify the critical weak spots that we have in the facility. Is that kind of an item going forward?
That's correct. So I've started to go through the cross sections that GMB sent us. I think the next step is we need to probably have a sit down meeting with Darren in Austin and GMB to go through the designs, to try to make some sort of tabulation as to what specific areas are vulnerable.
And we're gonna, and probably be just before that, we're gonna actually have GMB do an elevation certificate for the drying beds. What is the entryway into the drying beds? What's that elevation? Verify again the other elevation certificate, at least of the bio reactor area. And then with that, we have, like I said, we've got the drawings that really show where it stands, what's vulnerable. I think we're in pretty good shape. And you as a board, you've already kind of talked about an action plan. I think there's a lot already been done that it's going to really improve.
I think that would be helpful then as a part of this objective for our strategic plan, then to synthesize the work that's currently in progress and has been done, and at least start a file with where we are at this point in time with the potential threat that we may be facing. So I think that would be a good goal for this year.
Tom, would you write up a statement we can stick in there? And
Sure.
that captures this?
Absolutely.
Did you all see the report that was published a couple of weeks ago about flood insurance and how that's going to change, likely
Yes.
to change?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that may have an impact on your sea level rise thoughts in terms of what timeline you need to think about beginning to address some things.
Sure.
Yeah, and that came out, Ted, after our last sea level subcommittee meeting.
Right.
But we have another one coming up, and with the state consultants and the University of Delaware consultants we have, they're trying to stay in front of this. There's a lot of unknown questions.
There absolutely are a lot of unknown factors, period.
These are just right now, estimates based on federal data, but when's one of the feds going to finish their work?
The rates are going to be announced in October.
October.
But they're saying they could rise as much as 18% a year for 20 years. And the phone calls I've had were from alarmed residents who are living in flood-prone areas, who are saying, I'm presently paying under $2,000. If using these numbers, I'm going to be paying $35,000 a year for flood insurance. So those are just some numbers that may or may not be factual, but they're out there and they are alarming people. So I think the interest in what actions we're doing proactively, both the city and the board, are going to be very front and center in people's minds.
We have a feel what percentage of people that are in flood zones have flood insurance?
Well, it's interesting because if you have a mortgage, you have to have flood insurance.
Yeah.
And we know that quite a bit of property is changing hands right now for cash. So some of that may not have flood insurance.
Yeah.
I have no idea an actual percentage.
Yeah, and of course, there are some people who are buying property outright, and they're not required to have flood insurance.
That's right.
And we're, that letter, we're not the only one who got it. I have friends who are architects down south in the Carolinas and Florida who are equally as concerned about what's going on.
Oh yeah, it's nationwide. If you look at it, basically, the flood insurance program is bankrupt. So anyway.
All right, Robert, you want to pick it up?
Or picking up with paragraph 4 on engagement and transparency. I think we've talked about these before, certainly at the workshop. I'm not going to go over them in great detail. I think this semi-annual customer appreciation education suggestion is a good one. Not only to offer tours of the wastewater treatment plant or other facilities, but use it as an opportunity for staff to be available to answer customer questions, to demonstrate certain aspects of our customer portal and how they can obtain a meaningful data from that, to resolve any complaints that they may have, billing issues, explain the rate structures. I think we at least doing that twice a year would be something that would be a good opportunity for both the board and our customers to get their questions answered and learn more about the services that we provide to them. And one of the little known services, I think, concerns the Energy Smart or efficiency program that we operate. And maybe customers could take, with more knowledge, take advantage of that for some real savings and more energy efficient appliances. I also think it's a good idea if we began an outreach through service organizations as speakers or contacting homeowners associations, boards to see if they have any concerns from their communities, and again, use that as an opportunity to make customers more aware of what it is, what we do, and answer questions. So as I said, I think we've talked about that before, but I pose that as an objective that we can operationalize that once COVID allows us to meet face to face with larger groups of people. And I missed the pronouncement today from the CDC about wearing masks out in the open. I think they're saying now that that's not necessary, but hopefully we'll work through the COVID restrictions and we can begin that maybe as early as this fall, if not late summer.
And have the treatment plant open houses at Darren you've been pushing.
And they've been small group tours that I understand that have been made, 2, 3, 4 people. I remember several years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, we had a tent down at the wastewater treatment plant, and it was we had larger turnout at that time, and we still took groups of 10 or something like that through the plant. That was one of the things I was thinking about, that was a model that I'd like to see us expand upon by having the other staffs available to answer questions that weren't specifically about the wastewater treatment plant, but while they're waiting to go on the tour, take advantage of some of these other groups that we would have set up to explain various aspects of our utilities and programs.
I can see areas where this can be blown out even more. So we just obviously are going through an election cycle. There's lessons learned. We can sit down and kind of talk through what happened, how we can make it better. And it's always a continuing process when it comes to elections and making sure things are done. And I'm not talking correctly being, that we wasn't done right or illegally, but just making sure that we're doing the best job we can and making it as transparent and as easy for customers. I think if we talk about the website here, I think if we had Justin or whoever bring in somebody from the city that uses their website, we can go to Milford and wherever we want to go, Milton, Rehoboth, and have a best practice sharing with everybody. These guys aren't our competitors. They're candidly people we can learn from, or we can provide information to. So if we have a regularly scheduled meeting with these guys, we get to kind of not just have our best ideas, but best ideas that other people have as well, to kind of leverage that. And then I think of the finance committee. I know I'm on the one that the city has. I think that's something we can do as well to spin that up. And I think there's lessons learned from how Tim and Bonnie have managed through that process. Additional engagement and transparency as well. So I think that's a pretty broad category there.
Yeah.
To probably look through and filter through and figure out what to do and what not to do.
Darren and I set up a regular schedule for meetings going forward with the Public Works Director of Rehoboth. And we had one meeting down in Rehoboth and COVID hit.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been followed up. But once I think we're getting closer to resuming that at some point. I've run into it a couple of times and we've mentioned it. Yeah.
So COVID definitely has put a damper on all of that effort. But there's Mike Tappan over at the SPI Pharma. We talk regularly. We've got a really good relationship. I've got Angel over at the hospital. He's the physical facilities guy. They have needs. It's an easy outreach to them. I've got Lenny Richardson at the high school in the school district. We've just, we've got some really good relationships. They may not be the top guys, but sometimes, Dr. Tam, I don't know that he wants to take time to come deal with us. And so maybe, we'll have to be a little selective on how and who we select. But I do think we have some good relationships with our customers and that we're responsive to them.
I think regular meetings with HOA boards and service organizations too. I mean, they're always, the service organizations are always looking for speakers, and I think HOAs are too. And that goes, we should reach out to them and make sure that they're aware that we would like to come out and speak if they have need of or are interested in having that. Administrative operations.
Yeah, I think we've touched on this earlier, making our website more user-friendly, transparent, and informative. And I know that we mentioned that, or Darren or Austin or somebody mentioned that the new assistant coming on board is going to be able to bring some technical knowledge to that effort. I agree with Tom, I think, or Earl, I mean. I really like the city's website, and I like especially the way they can link their meeting minutes or materials right to the agenda. I think that's really cool. Yes. I don't know if currently we had the capability to do that, but it's those kinds of lessons learned from others that I think we ought to incorporate into our new website and maybe web hosting firm as we can. So that's what I was kind of thinking about on the administrative operations point. And the GIS, I think we, if we get the location of all of our outfalls into the GIS system, that would be a move, positive move forward. I know that staff has been working on identifying some. I don't know if we've gotten them all identified yet, and whether or not we have them all in the database, but I think that would be good to set that as a goal as well. And those were the original or initial thoughts that I wanted the board to consider and either modify or adopt.
And just along the lines, the last time Robert mentioned making sure we have good GIS data for all of our outfalls is critical to understanding our vulnerabilities, once again, to sea level rise. In general, I think think most of the outfalls are probably okay, but I would much rather see definitive data as far as the elevation of the outfall and the pitch, so that we know that those outfalls will continue to operate for whatever term we're looking at.
That's a big issue. I mean, what do you do about outfalls like that? I mean, the other thing, they back up as the water rises, right. And like I know in the Canal Front Park when we have extremely high tides, sometimes coming over the boardwalk, the beds there will flood because each one is connected directly to the canal. So
Right.
it goes both ways. All right, so these were just some items that we took from the original strategic plan and then the workshop. Are there other items that we missed or that we should be putting on there this year for anything? Or does anybody have any suggestions that we can add to this? Again, we talked most of these out at the workshop. I mean, we put that list together for discussion. So I think they should pretty much reflect what we did back then. If it's, so do I have a motion to accept this? I think we should accept it. And
I make a motion to accept the strategic plan with the items of amplification that we discussed.
second? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
Earl, you look worried about it. What is it?
Look, because I don't know what the priorities are. I don't know what the costs are. I don't know who's leading it. I don't know what the real definition of transparency is. So I'm looking at a blank piece of paper in my mind, and I don't know how you prioritize it and what you go do first, who's on the teams that do these individual things. So I don't know. I don't really know what I'm voting on. I know I want to do a finance committee. That's not written on this piece of paper. So I don't know if I have approval to do it or not do it. So it's just, I lack clarity on what we have in front of us.
Well, let's talk that out. I mean, we had the strategic plan put together, 3 years ago. And these were just goals for the board to give direction to the staff of what our priorities are, basically. I don't think we need to have it. I mean, I wasn't envisioning any type of structured board or committee to implement them. It's just the board's general plan of where they want to go, and gives the staff our priorities. And if you,
I guess where I get confused then is where does the staff own it and where do we own it? So on sea level rise, who owns that?
I think we both do.
Who's we both?
The board, from an oversight position. I mean, like what we're doing now is just informing them that that's something that we have to concentrate on going forward. And the staff has to, keep an eye on it and implement it as we go. Come up with ways to implement the issues on here.
Yeah, I mean, if I can chime in here, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, carrying all this out is the staff's responsibility. I mean, that's why we have the staff, but participating in it and providing oversight falls within, each of our organizational responsibilities from the board. So, for example, I was appointed 3 years ago to provide additional oversight for the electrical because of my expertise. So I get involved with Darren and Austin when we have all the discussions with batteries and solar and electrical studies. Robert has been following through on, the RKL studies. So we each have individual responsibilities that we participate with, but it's the staff that is, in my mind, the one that is doing the work.
That's true of everything we do.
Well, I don't know. I mean, when it comes to sea level rise and looking at the assessment, it sounds like that Tom is leading that.
Mhm.
So I don't know when it comes to transparency, if it's a finance committee like the city has, I think I would lead that. So I don't know that I think I look more broadly at transparency and engagement than maybe the rest of the board. And maybe that's just where I differ. But it seems like we made a different decision on sea level rise than we're making on some of these other items.
Well, I might disagree, Earl, because I don't think for the Board of Public Works, I am leading it. Once again, the evaluation has to be done by the staff and GMB, our engineer. Because of my participation in the Sea Level Rise Committee on the city side, am a party to it, but at the end of the day, it's got to be Darren that's the owner.
Well, we'll go in executive session and talk about that because that's not what I was told. So we can talk about this in more privacy if you want. But I look at these responsibilities more broadly. And I think that a finance committee as an example is something that I would lead as the treasurer, just as others do on the city. I've seen it. It's a best practice. It provides transparency. And I think it can be done at that level. And by the way, you guys can vote me down. That's not an issue. I don't mind that. But I would not vote for this the way this is written.
Well, I think these probably should be, we don't have many policies. And these probably should be, the right way to do it, probably to make these policies. But I don't see where that changes much as far as, we develop the policies, the staff implements them. So I'm missing your point about what we're doing wrong or what else we should be doing.
Well, just take the finance committee as an example. Should I, as the treasurer, not be in the finance committee if there was one?
I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, why?
So the budget that Darren puts through, I think we have a responsibility to look at it, to double check it, to see if it aligns with what we think as well. I think that's a board responsibility.
It is.
Okay. So this is, I guess I'm just having trouble understanding where we start and where Darren starts. And we can agree to disagree. It's I'm okay with that. I just think that there should be a review every year when we look at the prior elections and see what we can do better to run that process better. I just think that's part of continual improvement.
How would you do that? I mean, what that we're not doing?
I would sit down and say, okay, we just went through an election cycle. We had some things that worked. We had some things that didn't work. We all know that. And what can we do better? And maybe we don't lead that. Maybe someone else does. But I don't know how to get those things on that kind of an agenda, because we do need to improve the election cycle every year. That's just should be part of our DNA. So let's just vote on this, and I'm okay being voted down, but it's what I do believe, and that's how I'll vote.
We had to vote.
Then it's done.
You've got a hand up with Mike.
I'm sorry, Mike.
No, I just for, from a structural standpoint, I think any board member can request an agenda item if there's interest. So Earl, to your question about, reviewing, doing a post-election evaluation of the election procedures, and you can present that as an agenda item. And if the board's interested in examining that, you can have a sub-quorum of the board look into it, present a report. If there's action item for the board recommendations, you can bring that to the board. So my point is that any specific item can be brought up as an agenda. It's a discussion with the president to put it on the agenda. You can have the discussion of that item structurally. That's kind of how the board acts. You can do a sub-quorum and then present it, but any board member can request an agenda item to the extent that's helpful.
At the discretion of the president, right?
The president sets the agenda.
And it's very seldom times I turn down a suggestion from the board member. So I think, why don't you put your thoughts together and then we'll make an agenda item and discuss it.
Okay.
Okay. next month, probably not a good month with.
Well, the good news is you may not have me around, so we'll see how that goes.
Well, we can't get into that. All right, I think you're good. Okay. Item 10, open forum general discussion for the approval of resolution 21003, appointing Board of Election for 2021 for the Board of Public Works election to be held on May 8th, 2021.
So before we get into that, Mike, since 3 of us are up for election, is there any conflict with us participating and voting?
It's one that put me on the spot there, Tom.
Sorry about that.
No, I mean, the short answer is I would consider this to be a vote of general application. And so the charter calls for a concurrence of the majority of the board. The president appoints the individuals. This is a concurrence of the whole of the board. So I would be comfortable with the board members taking that vote, given that it is a matter of general application.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because actually I couldn't see how it could be any other way since 3 people were up for election.
And that's, I mean, that is, so just so you know, I mean, that is a rule in the conflicts analysis, the question of general application. And it's for this exact reason, which is where if you applied the conflict strictly to everybody, there'd be nobody left to vote. So on matters of general application, there is an exception to that.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion to read the resolution 21003 by title only and place it before the board for consideration and adoption? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we need a motion to adopt resolution 21003.
Press, I have to read it. So bear with me 1 second.
All right.
So there's been a motion second. Mr. President, members of the board, resolution number 21-003, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Board of Public Works of the City of Lewes regarding appointment of a Board of Elections for the 2020 annual election. Mr. President, resolution 21-003 has been read by title only and placed before the board for its consideration.
Sorry, Mike. Yeah.
Sorry.
I did that before. So now we'll need the motion to adopt the resolution 21003.
So moved.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And the last item, item 11, is open forum general discussion for approval of additional election officials for 2021 Board of Election to be held on May 8th, 2021. And the motion, we need a motion to approve Darren Gordon and Christina Keller, additional election officials for the 2021 Board of Public Works election to be held on May 8th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Is there any public that we can talk to?
I apologize. I'm going to step in just for 2 seconds. Is there any way we can back up or just add another resolution to that, to add my wife's name to that? She's been an election official before and she'll probably want to spend the day with me if that's all right. She can also be an elected worker. Would that be appropriate?
Okay with that, Mike?
Yep, you just say another motion to add Darren's wife.
Okay.
Marcy Gordon.
We have another motion to approve an additional election official to the Board of Public Works to be held on May 8th, 2021. You have a motion to that effect?
Yeah, so moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thanks, Darren. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I don't see any hands going up from the public, calling the public.
You got 3 of them, Anne Marie,
I see
Eddie,
it.
and
Jackie.
Jackie.
I called the press, no press there, so Need a motion to go into executive session?
Can I simply ask that, again, if you'd ask either Anne Marie or Libby or Jackie to raise their hands so we know that they've heard the request?
Jackie could do that.
Any one of them? Unless they've gone silent.
There you are.
There's a
You got
hand.
Jackie doing it. Yeah.
All right, we got a hand. They heard us.
Thank
I
you.
think we-
Okay. Did we make the motion for executive session?
I don't believe you did, Chris. I think you called for it, but then Darren asked his question, so you made the motion.
Did I hear a motion for executive session?
Make a motion that we go into executive session.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mayor, we'll let you
Okay.
go.
Right,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much.
Have a good evening.
You too.